In the summer of 1940, the fate of Western civilization hung in the balance above the English countryside. The Battle of Britain raged in the skies, with young pilots from around the world standing as the last line of defense against Nazi tyranny. Among these brave airmen was Lieutenant James "Jimmy" Sullivan, whose journey took him from the wide-open skies of Montana to the desperate aerial battles over England, where he would make the ultimate sacrifice for freedom. Before the leather flight jacket, before the wings pinned to his chest, before war claimed him among the clouds, Jimmy Sullivan was a dreamer from Billings, Montana, with his head perpetually tilted toward the heavens. Born in 1918 to a railroad engineer and a schoolteacher, Jimmy grew up during the golden age of aviation, when barnstormers and air shows captured the imagination of an entire generation. The Sullivan family lived in a modest home near the railroad yards, where young Jimmy would spend hours watching both trains and aircraft, fascinated by humanity's conquest of distance and speed. His father, Patrick Sullivan, often worked late shifts, leaving Jimmy in the care of his mother, Catherine, who nurtured her son's curiosity with books about flight and exploration. Their kitchen table became a launching pad for Jimmy's imagination, covered with sketches of aircraft designs and maps of faraway places he dreamed of visiting. Jimmy's obsession with aviation began at age 8 when a traveling air show came to Billings. The sight of a bright yellow biplane performing barrel rolls and loops against the backdrop of the Montana sky changed everything for him. That evening, he announced to his parents that he would become a pilot. His father chuckled and suggested he might want to have a backup plan. His mother simply smiled and bought him his first model airplane the following week. Throughout his teenage years, Jimmy worked odd jobs to fund flying lessons at the local airfield. He swept hangars, washed aircraft, and performed any task that would put him closer to the machines he loved. His dedication paid off when he earned his private pilot's license at 17, becoming one of the youngest certified pilots in Montana. Local newspapers even ran a small article about the flying Sullivan boy, though Jimmy was embarrassed by the attention. It was during his senior year of high school in 1935 that Jimmy met Ellie Patterson, a spirited young woman whose family had recently moved to Billings from Minnesota. Her father had taken a position with the Great Northern Railway, and Ellie was struggling to adjust to a new school and unfamiliar surroundings. Jimmy first noticed her during a school assembly, sitting alone and looking somewhat lost among the chattering students. Their romance began hesitantly, with Jimmy's natural shyness competing against his genuine desire to help the new girl feel welcome. He offered to show her around town, and their first date consisted of a walking tour of Billings that ended at the airfield where Jimmy worked. When a pilot friend offered to take them up for a brief flight, Ellie's excited acceptance sealed their connection. She wasn't afraid of flying. If anything, she was exhilarated by the experience, understanding immediately why Jimmy found such joy in the sky. Their relationship deepened throughout their final year of high school and continued when Jimmy enrolled at Montana State University to study aeronautical engineering. While other couples spent their time at movies or dances, Jimmy and Ellie would often drive out to the airfield, where he would explain the mechanics of flight while she listened with genuine interest. She wasn't just humoring his passion. She truly appreciated both the technical complexity and the poetry of aviation. By 1938, with war clouds gathering in Europe, Jimmy made a decision that would change everything. Despite his parents' concerns and Ellie's apprehension, he applied for and was accepted into the Royal Air Force Volunteer Reserve, part of Britain's effort to recruit experienced pilots from across the Commonwealth and beyond. The program offered advanced flight training and the chance to fly the most sophisticated aircraft in the world. Their farewell was both tender and heart-wrenching. On a crisp autumn evening in 1938, Jimmy and Ellie stood beneath the same Montana sky where their love had first taken flight. He promised to return as soon as his service commitment was complete. She promised to wait, though both understood the uncertainty that lay ahead. They exchanged letters, his filled with technical descriptions of RAF training, hers with news from home and declarations of unchanging love. Jimmy's training in England proved both exhilarating and challenging. He quickly mastered the Hawker Hurricane fighter, impressed his instructors with his natural flying ability, and formed bonds with fellow pilots from across the British Empire. His letters to Ellie during this period reveal a young man growing in confidence and skill, while remaining grounded by his Montana values and his love for the girl he'd left behind. When Germany invaded Poland in September 1939, Jimmy's training took on deadly urgency. The phony war period allowed for continued preparation, but everyone understood that real combat was inevitable. Jimmy was assigned to number 242 Squadron, a fighter unit with a proud history and experienced leadership. His squadron mates included veterans of early war operations and fellow volunteers from Canada, Australia, and other nations determined to resist Nazi aggression. By July 1940, the Battle of Britain had begun in earnest. German forces had conquered France and were preparing Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of Britain itself. The Luftwaffe launched a massive air offensive designed to achieve air superiority before the seaborne invasion commenced. Standing against them were fewer than 3,000 RAF pilots, including Jimmy Sullivan and his fellow airmen. The battle's intensity exceeded anything Jimmy had experienced in training. Multiple sorties per day, combat against overwhelming odds, and the constant stress of knowing that each mission might be his last. His letters to Ellie during this period became more frequent but shorter, often written in haste between missions. He shared what he could about his experiences while shielding her from the worst realities of aerial combat. On August 15, 1940, a day that would become known as Eagle Day, the Luftwaffe launched its largest single attack of the battle. Over 1,700 German aircraft crossed the channel, targeting RAF airfields, radar stations, and aircraft factories. Jimmy's squadron was scrambled multiple times that day, engaging enemy formations in desperate battles across the skies of southern England. Military records indicate that Lieutenant Sullivan shot down 2 German aircraft during the morning engagement, demonstrating the skill and courage that had earned him rapid promotion. During the afternoon sortie, his Hurricane was damaged by enemy fire, but he managed to return to base, landing with a punctured fuel tank and bullet holes throughout his aircraft. That evening, as ground crews worked frantically to repair aircraft for the next day's operations, Jimmy found time to write what would be his final letter to Ellie. Using a battered table in the pilot's ready room, surrounded by the organized chaos of a fighter station under siege, he began what he surely hoped would be just another in their ongoing correspondence. The next morning, August 16th, brought another massive German assault. Jimmy's squadron was among the first to engage the incoming formations. Witnesses reported seeing his Hurricane climb aggressively toward a formation of German bombers, pressing his attack despite heavy defensive fire. His aircraft was hit by return fire from the bombers and began trailing smoke. Rather than break off the engagement, Jimmy continued his attack, successfully downing one of the enemy aircraft before his own Hurricane went into an uncontrollable dive. Jimmy's aircraft crashed in a Kent pasture not far from the very airfield he had been defending. He was found still strapped in his cockpit, apparently killed instantly by the impact. Among his personal effects recovered from the wreckage and eventually returned to his family was a letter addressed to Ellie, completed but never sent, found in the breast pocket of his flight jacket. Before we share Lieutenant Sullivan's final words to the woman he loved, I ask that you take a moment to like this video. Your support helps us continue telling these essential stories of sacrifice and courage, ensuring that the experiences of those who fought in the skies over Britain are never forgotten by future generations. What follows are the words of Lieutenant James Sullivan in his final letter to his sweetheart, words written in the brief calm before the storm that would claim his life.
August 15th, 1940, R. A.F. Northolt, England. My darling Ellie, I'm writing this by the light of a single bulb in our ready room, while the ground crews work through the night to patch up our hurricanes for tomorrow's operations. The smell of aviation fuel and cordite hangs in the air, mixing with the stronger aroma of the tea that keeps us going during these long days. It's nearly midnight, but sleep seems impossible after today's events. We flew 4 sorties today, more than I've ever flown in a single day, and Jerry seems intent on making tomorrow even busier. The Luftwaffe threw everything they had at us, wave after wave of bombers and fighters crossing the channel like angry hornets. For 12 hours, we've been climbing, fighting, landing, refueling, and climbing again. My Hurricane has more holes in it than a piece of Swiss cheese, but she's still flying, and that's what matters. I wish I could tell you more about what we're facing here, but the sensors would black out most of it anyway. What I can say is that your Jimmy has become quite the fighter pilot. 2 confirmed victories today, and my squadron leader says I'm developing into one of the better shots in the unit. Not bad for a boy from Montana who learned to fly on weekend crop dusters. The funny thing is, Ellie, I keep thinking about home during the most intense moments of combat. When German fighters are diving on us and the sky is full of tracer fire, my mind somehow drifts to that evening when we watched the sunset from your father's railroad bridge. Do you remember? You were wearing that blue dress with the white flowers. And we talked about all the places we'd visit together someday. Those dreams seem both impossibly distant and perfectly real, depending on the moment. I had to stop writing for a while. Air raid sirens again, though this time it was a false alarm. The boys are getting jumpy, and who can blame them? We've lost too many good men in the past week. Yesterday, it was Flying Officer Morrison from Vancouver. Just 22 years old, engaged to a girl back home. Last week, we lost Pilot Officer Davies from Wales, who had a baby daughter he'd never seen. The empty chairs in our mess hall are starting to outnumber the occupied ones. But listen to me going on about such grim things. That's not what I want to share with you tonight. Instead, let me tell you about the moment this afternoon when I was flying at 25,000 feet above a layer of clouds that stretched to every horizon like a sea of cotton. The sun was breaking through in cathedral shafts of light, and for just a moment, the war seemed to disappear. I was just Jimmy Sullivan from Billings, Montana, doing what he loved most in the world, flying. In that moment, I thought about you more intensely than ever before. I could almost feel you in the cockpit beside me, sharing the wonder of that view. I remembered how your eyes lit up during our first flight together, how you weren't afraid but excited, how you immediately understood why I needed to be up there among the clouds. Most girls would have been terrified, but not my Ellie. You saw the beauty in it, the freedom, the pure joy of defying gravity and common sense. Dawn is breaking now, and I can hear the ground crews starting up the engines for the morning's first test flights. We'll be airborne again soon, climbing up to meet whatever the Luftwaffe sends our way. But before I go, there are things I need to tell you. Things that have been weighing on my heart during these long nights of battle. First, I need you to know that every day here has confirmed what I knew when I left Montana, that I love you more than my own life. Not just the romantic love of youth, though that remains as strong as ever, but something deeper and more enduring. You are the fixed star by which I navigate, the constant in a world gone mad with violence and uncertainty. When everything else seems to be falling apart, the thought of you remains steady and true. I've been thinking a lot about the future lately, not just the immediate future of this battle, but the long-term future we've planned together. I still want to marry you, Ellie. I still want to build that house we designed together, with the big windows facing west so we can watch Montana sunsets from our kitchen table. I still want to teach our children to fly, to show them the world from 10,000 feet up where everything looks possible and beautiful. But I also need to be honest with you about what I'm facing here. This isn't like anything I expected when I signed up for the RAF. The Germans aren't just testing our defenses, they're trying to break them completely, to clear the way for an invasion of Britain itself. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and losing pilots faster than we can replace them. Some days it feels like we're holding back the tide with our bare hands. I don't want to frighten you with these realities, but I also can't pretend they don't exist. If something happens to me, and I pray with all my heart that it won't, I need you to know certain things. I need you to know that I died doing what I believed in, fighting for something larger than myself. I need you to know that every moment we shared together was precious beyond measure, and that those memories have sustained me through the darkest days of this war. Most importantly, I need you to know that if I don't make it home, you must continue living fully. Don't let grief become a prison, Ellie. You have too much to offer the world, too much love to give, too many dreams yet to be realized. Promise me that you'll finish your teaching degree. Promise me that you'll travel to some of those places we marked on our map. Promise me that you'll find someone worthy of your remarkable heart, someone who will cherish you as completely as I have. I know that's a difficult thing to ask, but love sometimes requires us to let go of the people we care about most. I would rather know that you're living joyfully without me than merely existing in my memory. That's not betrayal. That's the ultimate expression of love. The sun is fully up now, and I can hear the familiar sounds of a fighter station coming to life, engines warming up, armorers loading ammunition, pilots checking their equipment. In an hour, we'll be airborne again, climbing toward whatever the day brings. I should be nervous, but I find myself strangely calm. Perhaps it's knowing that I'm exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I was meant to do. There's something magical about flying, Ellie. Something that transcends the mere mechanics of lift and thrust and drag. Up there, alone with the sky and the clouds and the endless horizon, you become part of something larger than yourself. You join the ancient dream of human flight, the same dream that inspired the Wright brothers in Lindbergh and all the pioneers who pushed the boundaries of what was possible. I feel that magic every time I take off, every time I climb above the earth and see the world spread out below like a vast, beautiful map. Even in combat, even when the sky is full of enemy aircraft and tracer fire, there's still that moment of pure transcendence when you realize that you're flying, actually flying, defying everything that should keep you bound to the ground. That's what I want you to remember about me, Ellie. Not the war, the sadness, or the fear, but the joy. Remember the boy who used to take you up in borrowed airplanes, who showed you the world from above the clouds, who believed that anything was possible if you had enough courage and determination. Remember the dreams we shared, the plans we made, the future we envisioned together. And remember that love, real love, doesn't end with death. It continues in the hearts of those who remain, in the memories that sustain them, in the choices they make and the lives they build. Whatever happens to me up there in the blue, what we've shared together will endure. That's the most beautiful truth I've discovered in this ugly war. That love is stronger than death, more enduring than any earthly thing. They're calling for us now. Time to climb into my hurricane and take to the skies once more. Whatever this day brings, know that I carry you with me always, in my heart, in my thoughts, in my dreams of the future that awaits us when this madness ends. Until we meet again, whether in Montana or in whatever comes after, your devoted Jimmy. P.S. I found a small piece of shrapnel yesterday, polished smooth by the wind. It's strangely beautiful, like a silver tear from the sky. I'm keeping it as a token of these strange days, a reminder that even in the midst of destruction, there can be unexpected beauty. Rather like our love, which has grown stronger even as the world around us has grown darker.
Lieutenant James Sullivan never returned to the wide skies of Montana. His hurricane crashed in a Kent pasture on August 16, 1940, during one of the most intense periods of the Battle of Britain. He was 22 years old, with barely 2 years of military service, but a lifetime of dreams that would never be fulfilled. His sacrifice, along with that of nearly 3,000 other airmen, helped turn the tide of World War II at its most critical moment. The strategic impact of the Battle of Britain cannot be overstated. Hitler's failure to achieve air superiority over England forced the indefinite postponement of Operation Sea Lion, the planned invasion of Britain. This gave Britain time to strengthen its defenses, allowed the Soviet Union to prepare for the German invasion that would come the following year, and provided the United States with a crucial ally when it entered the war after Pearl Harbor. Eleanor Patterson received word of Jimmy's death in September 1940 through a telegram delivered to her family's home in Billings. His personal effects, including the final letter, arrived 3 months later, shipped by the RAF, along with his medals and commendations. The letter that had been meant as routine correspondence became instead a final testament of love and hope in the face of overwhelming odds. Historical records show that Ellie honored Jimmy's memory in remarkable ways. She completed her teaching degree and spent 4 decades educating children in rural Montana schools, often incorporating lessons about aviation and the importance of courage in the face of adversity. She never married, though she maintained in later interviews that this wasn't from inability to love again, but from a sense that her life's purpose lay elsewhere. In 1995, on the 55th anniversary of the Battle of Britain, Ellie traveled to England to visit Jimmy's grave in the small Kent churchyard where he was buried. She was 73 years old, making her first trip outside North America to honor a promise she had made decades earlier. The local RAF station arranged for her to fly in a restored Hurricane, her first flight since that long-ago day with Jimmy in Montana. "I wanted to see the world as he saw it one last time," she told reporters after the flight. "I wanted to understand what he loved so much about the sky, what made him willing to give his life for the chance to fly." The experience, she said, finally allowed her to feel at peace with his choice to join the war effort, understanding that his love of flight and his commitment to freedom were inseparable. The Battle of Britain has been thoroughly analyzed by historians, its tactical and strategic dimensions exhaustively documented. We know the aircraft specifications, the pilot training methods, the radar systems that provided early warning, but these technical details tell us little about the human experience of those desperate months. The fear, exhilaration, camaraderie, and sacrifice of young men who held the line against tyranny. Lieutenant Sullivan's letter offers us such a window, not just into one pilot's final thoughts, but into the universal human experience of finding meaning in the midst of chaos, maintaining hope despite overwhelming odds, and loving so deeply that even death cannot diminish that connection. His words transcend the specific circumstances of his sacrifice, speaking to timeless truths about courage, love, and the pursuit of something greater than oneself. What wisdom might we glean from Jimmy's final communication? What insights does his interrupted life offer those of us living in more peaceful times? Perhaps the first lesson concerns the nature of calling and purpose. Notice how Jimmy described flying not merely as a job or hobby, but as a form of transcendence, something that transcends the mere mechanics of lift and thrust and drag. For him, aviation wasn't just about controlling a machine, but about joining the ancient dream of human flight. This perspective suggests that meaningful work isn't just about what we do, but about how we understand our place in the larger human story. Jimmy's letter also reveals profound insights about love under pressure. His relationship with Ellie wasn't weakened by distance and danger, but strengthened by them. The physical separation forced him to articulate feelings he might have taken for granted in peacetime. His love letter becomes a testament to how crisis can clarify what truly matters, stripping away the superficial to reveal essential truths. There is also, in Jimmy's words, a remarkable ability to find beauty even in the midst of destruction. His description of flying above the clouds during combat, cathedral shafts of light, breaking through a sea of cotton, reveals someone who maintained his capacity for wonder even in the darkest circumstances. This isn't naive optimism, but a conscious choice to remain open to beauty despite being surrounded by violence. Perhaps most striking is Jimmy's advice to Ellie about living fully even if he didn't survive. "Don't let grief become a prison," he urged. "You have too much to offer the world, too much love to give, too many dreams yet to be realized." These words reveal someone who understood that the ultimate expression of love isn't possession, but liberation, freeing the beloved to flourish even in our absence. His reflection on the nature of love itself deserves particular attention. "Love, real love, doesn't end with death," he wrote. "It continues in the hearts of those who remain, in the memories that sustain them, in the choices they make and the lives they build." This perspective challenges our culture's tendency to view death as the end of relationship, suggesting instead that love creates bonds that transcend physical existence. The Battle of Britain cost the RAF 544 aircrew killed and 422 wounded. Behind each statistic was a person like Jimmy Sullivan, young men with dreams, relationships, and futures that would never be realized. Yet their sacrifice was not in vain. The freedom they defended allowed democracy to survive its greatest test, providing the foundation for the eventual Allied victory and the post-war world order. Eleanor Patterson understood this truth. In addition to her teaching career, she became a volunteer with the Air Force Association, helping to preserve the memory of the Battle of Britain and educate new generations about the price of freedom. She established a scholarship fund for students pursuing careers in aviation, ensuring that Jimmy's passion for flight would continue inspiring others long after his death. When the United States entered World War II following Pearl Harbor, Ellie also volunteered for civilian defense efforts, teaching first aid and aircraft identification. She understood that Jimmy's sacrifice required her to contribute to the war effort in whatever way she could. That love demanded action as well as memory. The hurricane that Jimmy flew has become an icon of the Battle of Britain, symbolizing the courage of the few who stood against overwhelming odds. Museums around the world preserve these aircraft as monuments to that desperate summer when the fate of civilization hung in the balance. Yet the real monuments are the lives that were saved, the freedom that was preserved, and the democracy that survived because young men like Jimmy Sullivan were willing to climb into their cockpits day after day, knowing that each flight might be their last. In our current era, when the sacrifices of World War II seem distant and the threats they faced appear abstract, Jimmy's letter reminds us that freedom is not free. It requires each generation to decide what principles are worth defending, what values are worth preserving, and what price they're willing to pay to maintain them. The skies over Britain are peaceful now, marked only by the contrails of commercial aircraft carrying passengers to destinations around the world. The airfields where Jimmy and his fellow pilots fought have been converted to other uses or transformed into museums. Yet their legacy endures in the freedom we enjoy, the democracy we participate in, and the peace we often take for granted. As we conclude this journey through one couple's encounter with history's greatest conflict, we might reflect on the continuing relevance of the values Jimmy died defending: the freedom of thought, the right to live without fear, the opportunity to pursue our dreams. These remain precious gifts that each generation must be willing to protect. Lieutenant Sullivan's letter, written in a fighter station under siege over 80 years ago, offers us perspective both sobering and inspiring. Life is precious and fragile. Love is powerful and enduring. And sometimes ordinary people are called to do extraordinary things. Yet within these challenging truths lies hope that individual actions can shape history, that love can transcend even death, and that the dreams we pursue and the values we defend can outlast our brief time on Earth. As Jimmy wrote to Ellie from that distant airfield, love is stronger than death, more enduring than any earthly thing. In our own uncertain times, perhaps there is no more essential truth than this: that what we create through authentic love and genuine courage continues long after we're gone, carried forward by those whose lives we've touched, preserved in the institutions we've defended, and embodied in the values we've chosen to live by. The boy from Montana who dreamed of flying found his purpose in the skies over England, defending principles he believed were worth dying for. His interrupted life reminds us that heroism isn't about the absence of fear, but about the decision to act courageously despite it. That love isn't about possession, but about empowerment. And that meaning isn't found in longevity, but in the depth of our commitment to something greater than ourselves. If this story has moved you, if it has helped you understand the human dimension of the Battle of Britain and the price of the freedom we enjoy today, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support enables us to continue honoring these stories of sacrifice, courage, and enduring love, ensuring that the experiences of those who fought in the skies over Britain remain alive in our collective memory, not as distant history, but as vital inspiration for our own times of challenge and choice.